but were their intentions immoral? Because that's the other thing of morality and what is sin. Is it an action? Is it an intention? You know, I feel like there's a lot of levels to this, but your point is definitely well taken.
From the Israeli point of view, if you're being bombed over the border, it's quite moral to try to defend yourself. You're defending your children. You're defending your wives and children.
Yeah, but stopping food and medicine shipments to the other side is not defending yourself.
It depends upon how you define the group and
Yeah. Okay, Russ.
What are we talking about?
I like that.
Very much so.
And then just to flip it around, or can you think of an immoral act that is bad for the group? Actually, that's just what I said. Okay.
Well, if lying is immoral, but lying and not telling my dying parent the truth of that illness, which would also protect all those people gathered around, then I have committed an immoral act of lying, but in fact I protected the group from greater injury, harm, and greater shock to the person who's dying.
Yeah. That's an excellent example.
But I'm trying to protect the group there.
Yeah. So is that an immoral act? But excellent example. And I think we can continue this idea. Like, let's name some vices. What are some evil acts? Not look for anything really profound this time.
Murder.
Murder. Yep. Obviously against the interests of the group. Stealing.
Is murdering Adolf Hitler an immoral act?
Excellent question.
That would be execution.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Depends how you define murder. So murder, stealing, rape, fraud, every vice that you can think of are things that are against the good of the group. So let's name some virtues.
Sharing.
Sharing. Obviously, good for the group.
Mercy.
Mercy. Clearly relational.
Loving.
Loving, yeah.
Forgiveness.
You always have to have another person. There has to be, even if that group is two people, a dyad, then that is still, by definition, a group. Yeah. Yeah, didn't you say
Forgiveness.
forgiveness? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cooperation, altruism, generosity, sympathy, kindness, selflessness. Those are all virtues. But what are they in a biological sense? They are things that are good for the group, that promote the greater good of the group. So here's what I want to do. Talk for over 30 minutes. Let's play a game. And here's how we're going to do it. Let me explain the scenario, and then this is gonna involve you. You will be asked to move. You will be asked to remember and do simple math. It's a lot to ask, but we're gonna try and see how it goes. It's a total experiment. This could totally flop, but let's try it on. The prisoner's dilemma is this: you are a criminal, and you have an accomplice. You have a buddy. You guys have both just, say, robbed a bank. You're both busted. You're taken into jail. You're put in two different cells. You can't communicate to each other. You don't know what the other one's thinking. You don't know what's being said to the other person. The cop comes to you and says, hey, listen, I want to strike you a deal. If you are willing to put some evidence, some hard evidence on your friend so that we can really nail him and make an example out of him, I'm willing to work out a deal to where you can have a lesser sentence. In the scenario, that's the top right and the bottom left. The scenario, if you rat out your friend, he gets a really tough 5-year sentence, but you get a really light sentence of 1 year. So you're put in this scenario, but your friend is put in the exact same scenario, but unbeknownst to you, he's been given this deal of you rat out him, and we'll get you off light. But the way this scenario is set up, if you both rat each other out, then you both get screwed because there's both evidence against you. And you both get a 3-year sentence. Okay? But there is a third option here. You can, instead of ratting each other out and either taking the risk of getting the really great sentence of 1 year, which doesn't seem that great, but in this scenario it is, or the risk of getting the 3-year and both going down and burning with your friend, or if you both cooperate, you both stay mum and don't rat each other out, then you'll both get an okay sentence of 2 years. Okay? So you're going to have to apply that. Do I need to go through that again?
But that's not given to you, right? Because
You don't know it.
you don't know that. You're just assuming that it would be harder to find the other guy guilty or find you guilty, and therefore you get a lighter
No.
sentence.
Okay, you are aware of the 3 different options.
Okay.
You're not aware of the reaction of your friend, though. So that's the unknown factor. You understand all this scenario, but you don't know what he's going to do, which is going to make a big difference.
But you've loaded the language as rat him out.
Yeah, there is, and to be honest, you bring up a great point. There's an implied right answer in the way that we're doing this morning, okay? This is not neutral. I can't even pretend that it's neutral. But I do want you to, as best you can, try to think neutrally and put this in a scenario where you're trying, let's say you got a family. Okay, let's put some moral juice in this. Let's say you have a family and you don't want to be gone for 5 years. You don't want to be gone for 3 years. You got to take care of this family. You want to be gone for as little time as possible. You're trying to act in your best interest, which is the least amount of sentence. So here's how we're going to do it. We're going to play kind of like rock, paper, scissors. And the flat palm means you're going to defect, meaning that, you might understand already what I'm saying. Defecting is ratting out your friend, is saying, the evidence against him to give him a tough sentence, or take the risk of giving him a tough sentence. But you could also be screwing yourself over. And then staying a fist is staying strong and cooperating. Okay, don't think of it that way. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, and then your choice on number 4. And we're going to do this. We're going to split up in 2s. And then you're going to get 5 rounds, and then you're going to go on to the next person, and we're going to repeat that 3 times. It's really heady. I know. Are there any questions before we begin? Yes, Mark.
Again, if defect or cooperate, defect means you rat them out?
Defect means rat them out. Cooperate means stay silent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. So we're going to do that. You're going to do this deal 5 times with a single person, then move on to the next, and move on to the next. And the idea is that hopefully that's a little bit enough of a time to experiment, to play with these different options. Which is better long term, which is better short term? And remember, you can't communicate with your partner. Okay, that's part of the deal. You've got to try to read their mind and figure out what they're going to do. Are they going to defect? If they're going to defect for sure, what's the only smart option?
You too.
Yeah, to defect too. Otherwise, you get screwed with a 5-year sentence. But if they're going to cooperate, what's the best option? Why not take the 1-year sentence? Okay, so you guys understand this is a dilemma. It's a dilemma because you don't know what the other person's going to do. You don't know whether to play nice guy or you don't know whether to play bad guy. But remember, we're trying to think of this neutrally. You want to get the least amount of sentence possible because let's say you're not a human, but you're some kind of organism, and you're dealing with another organism.
So
Yeah.
you're saying we're not putting morality in this, we're not saying what we can live with.
You're putting a selfish morality into it just to experiment with what works best. Okay?
And we know no other data, like how good a friend is this?
Yeah, that's something we'll talk about too.
Okay.
Well, see, I found out in high school that only do a crime with somebody that you know won't defend.
Yeah. Yeah.
I found that out in high school.
All right, so let's give that a try. We'll give you a couple minutes and then we'll discuss.
Just get up and mill around.